to Scarworld. This will be part 3 of our base tour. We've got a third floating island in the sky with a new build style. This time we went for a medieval style, which is my first time building in this style, and I think it came out just lovely. We got a bunch of custom trees, we got a bunch of really cool buildings, but before we tour all that, first let's cover what's new in parts 1 and 2. So probably you already saw in the last video the algae that's been added here. Basically, I saw a suggestion that we should put green carpet around the edges of our swamp biome here to make it look like the algae had accumulated, and also a pretty cool idea to put green glass panes and with pots, flower pots on the top to look like cattails. And I think it works mostly. This might be better with iron bars or fence posts of some kind, but for now, I like it, I'm keeping it, and I love how scummy the water looks with all of this green carpet around. And look at that, you can just tell that they're dumping more and more waste into this. So that's what we added since last time here, and then I did make a small addition to our part 2, which, if you recall, was in the Asian, sort of Japanese, sort of Korean inspired island up here. I decided it was very green and kind of orangey, and what it needed was some kind of a color, so I decided to try my hand at a very small cherry blossom tree, and this is what I came up with. Pink and white glass panes with, of course, pink glazed terracotta and acacian wood fences and fence gates to try to make this. It's not very big. It's difficult to build on a small scale in Minecraft, as I'm sure you are all aware, but I think it turned out all right, and it really does help complete this image here because it adds that color that just naturally draws your eye and kind of frames this whole floating island here. But of course, the thing we've all been waiting for, it's time to move on to bigger and better things. So let's take a little trip up this extended stream and see what the next island brings. So the first thing that you'll notice is the water has changed to blue, and that's because we have finally escaped the swamp biome and we're now above a river biome and a tall birch forest. So that was my goal in building in this direction, was to get far enough over that we wouldn't have that ugly gray swamp water anymore. And now, if I continue to build in that direction, we'll be able to take advantage of the beautiful blue stream for our next projects. But what do you think? We start off with this bridge here, first thing I built after I got the island established, and if you come out of the water, you get your view of some of the first buildings. Now this island was a ton of fun to make, and one of the things I really enjoyed was all the custom trees that we have. Big, huge oak trees and some small scraggly ones as well. But as you can see, we attempted to build in a medieval style in this build, and most of the time I think it came out great. Now I wasn't trying to emulate anybody else's style, and so what I came up with was entirely my own. And by that I mean it's not accurate historically, it's not necessarily the best block choices, and it doesn't necessarily look the best, but it is definitely a style that is all of my own. So over here we have kind of a watchtower, and this, as you can see, people sleep here and work here. That is for sure. Nothing in any of the barrels, but be careful, you don't want to hurt yourself on the saw blade. Somebody left that running, that's no good. We got a small middle floor with some storage and some water that's dripping on the people down below. And if we head up here with a pretty narrow staircase, which is nice, I like the addition of the spruce trapdoors there to kind of block off this gap. We get to the top where I've put a flag. I'm not sure if I like the flag yet, but it really does give you that sort of European castle kind of feel. You can see we've got a beautiful view from up here, and actually this is a great spot to take off with Elytra and fly around, but this was actually the last thing I built here. So let's take a look at the first thing I built, and that was this, what's supposed to be a water mill. And if you go inside, you'll see that that's mostly what it is. You see we've got the water mill, water wheel turning this gear, which is going to turn this worm gear here, which is going to grind whatever you put in here. Oh, looks like I put bricks in there. I did not know that was in there. But it's good to do these tours. I get to find all these supplies that apparently left lying around here. But the inside is not much. Now these buildings I did mostly with a stone base and then a wattle and daub sort of upper floor, in this case using dark oak logs and smooth sandstone, which I just adore the smooth sandstone texture, so I wanted to use it if at all possible. And as you can see here, I've made a pretty small, pretty compact water wheel with kind of a dispenser in the middle. Or is that a dropper? That's a dispenser for that circular center there. And I actually got the river flowing just perfectly, so it looks like it could absolutely turn this water wheel as it cascades down through this narrow channel. It did take a while to get all the water flowing exactly how I wanted it, but that's the first thing I did before I started building any of these lovely buildings. And mostly, I like how this turned out. It set the template for what I was going to do for the rest of the buildings. The next building I built was this one. What do you think this is? Maybe a small spot where you can buy a beverage and refuel on your journey. Oh, look at the horses peeking through there. Oh, and a pig's got his face impaled in a spruce trapdoor. That cannot be pleasant. But the shopkeeper of this does have a room or two to rent out. If you just go up these stairs along the side, you see that we have some nice beds here with the picture, and a place to store your valuables, and even a desk you can work in. Very nice interior here with the red beds. I like that. And of course, we've got the lanterns everywhere, which is really what makes this place feel very old-fashioned and, you know, not modern at all. I think these lanterns are a perfect touch. Now, if you go down the street here, you'll see that there's plenty of medieval dirt along the sides of the cobblestone road, and I think that helps a lot too. We do have two horses here. This is not a breeding farm or anything. This is just for looks, aesthetic, pig pen and horse pen. And I'm happy to say, proud to say, the horses were delivered by Galaxy Wolfie. I didn't actually go and get them and navigate them through the nether, so they were not a pain in my butt. Somebody else shouldered that burden, and I paid them diamonds for that. But if we go down this short alleyway, we start to see the really tall buildings. This is going to be like the medieval downtown of this island. We've got a couple of really big buildings. This one's got a cellar even, where there's some kind of a furnace array maybe. And then it continues up. We've got 3 floors on this one. Maybe a spot for gathering and eating and playing games maybe. And then a spot higher up for showing off your wares and maybe doing some trading and maybe some shopping. And we've even got a couple of balconies on this floor. And the floor above it, we go up this spiral staircase, very small and compact. You'll see we've got even a bedroom and an attic. And if we go up here, we've got junk. I mean, who doesn't have junk in their attic? So I think it fits very well. But as you can see, we did spruce floors and still dark oak beams, but when they were inside, I stripped them down so that they kind of matched the floor a little bit better. And lots of balconies and lots of custom trees, very important. And even a balcony over here. Let's go down and check out some of the other buildings that we put in here. They're all a little bit different on the exteriors and the interiors. As you can see, this one, I didn't have the stone extrude from the upper floors at all. It's in line with that, with this connected texture here, which I think actually works pretty well for this style. As you can see, that is in contrast to the mill where the stone does stick out. But if we run up here, you'll see what we have inside. A nice little waiting table here where someone can take your money while you wait for a room, I guess. A little bit of workforce housing here. 4 beds, no waiting. And upstairs, we've got kind of a hallway with a nice flower and a door where you can rent a room. So that's what I'm thinking for this one. And it has an attic as well. A lot of these buildings, just the roof style, just lent themselves to attics. So there's a lot of attics happening over here. And a lot of these dormers where you can peek out, and that's supposed to be down like that. Where you can peek out and look at all the rooftops in this city, this little village, I suppose. Now, if we run up here, we do something that I wasn't fond of, and that is making walls out of spruce trapdoors. But I thought that it would work for this one because we wanted to make this sort of private, as it's somebody's room. And so I kind of made a screen here, and of course an attic up here as well. Lots of furniture, just mostly empty barrels and chests, but I think that really adds to the look that somebody lives here and stores probably all the possessions that they own in the whole wide world up there. So one of the things we also did in this building is experimented with using oak trapdoors for windows instead of the more opulent glass option, which of course not everyone would be able to afford back then. Now, right here, we're skirting around my favorite building of this little particular city, and that is the Oddball House. I'm thinking the character who lives here doesn't care what anybody else thinks about their house, and they're just going to do what they want. It's a little bit strange. The floor is a little bit lower. The knickknacks on the walls are a little bit odd and mismatched, and even the choice of artwork is strange. But this person has been around and seen some sights, let me tell you. And they've got a lot of flowers and plants and balconies, so you can tell they like their nature a lot, and they don't really care about keeping things tidy, that's for sure. And that's why I like this one. It's a little bit weird using oak wood where I've used spruce for everything else, but it definitely made this balcony stand out, and that was important because otherwise it blended in and just looked too samey for everything else. Now, a lot of medieval towns will have a blacksmith, but I wanted to depart from that because it's done so commonly. And for instance, the naturally generated villages in Minecraft have blacksmiths. So what I did here was supposed to be a bricklayer's and a brickmaker's, I guess, shop here. They have all the cooling racks where they can cool the greenware, and then of course the kiln here where you can shutter this once you've put in the fuel, and it will bake your bricks at a very high temperature for a very long period of time. And over here they've got some ash here that they can add to the clay to make it stronger, and a mortar and pestle where they can mash that ash up. The finer it is, the stronger greenware you get, which turns into the stronger pottery. And then of course a bunch of places where they can store that. And since this kiln has to be on all the time, they don't have windows, they've just got bars, so they can get a lot of good ventilation in this place. And I thought that was great. It really stands out and makes a big difference with all of the other houses in this area being stone, and smooth sandstone really makes a difference here, and that makes it much more interesting to walk around. Now, our next building is sort of the funkiest shaped building that I've ever built, and I don't have much to say except that it kind of works when you're all done. And it is, of course, a church, which you would have in a town like this, with red stained glass windows, because you have to have stained glass in a church, and a nice place where everyone can stand and observe the Mass, because it's not rich enough to have seating, plus it wouldn't fit very well. An altar, of course, and a lectern, and even something like a bell tower, which I didn't put a bell in because it's 2 by 2, and I just could not get happy with something that wasn't hanging directly in the mirror. So you can look out and observe your surroundings, but there's not going to be any bell in there anytime soon. Continuing on, we have next to the church something of a cemetery. Very peaceful, very simple. I made it small. Of course, I have limited space, building as I am way up in the air, but I thought I could do a lot with a couple of walls and some pressure plates for headstones, and some path blocks. Whoa! This cemetery is coming alive where I don't want it to. Let's get out of here. Go back to the dead. All right. Now over here, of course, we have the main crypt or mausoleum, or whatever you want to call this, which was just beautiful. I found some concept art and tried to match it as well as I could. And inside, of course, is a nether portal. So it masks that quite well while still looking beautiful and sitting right next to the church perfectly. And over here is just the edge. Don't fall off. Let's see, is there anything else to show off? We do, of course, end our trip with a pond where there will be a water to take us up to part 4. Now, finally, the last thing that I made for this city here is the second nether portal, which of course has to connect to the nether pathways here in our hub in Scarworld. And I'm happy to say that it does. I built this secondary hallway in the medieval style, which links right up to our initial hallway here. So if you're playing on the Scarworld, I invite you to come check out this build, and I hope you do. I'm down the western tunnel on the right.